Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I want to do a get ready with me and just chat with you about a couple of things. One is my trip to New York City. I just spent 5 days there with my son on his spring break, and we had a great time, and some other stuff happened. Like I picked up this horrible cold from him. He went into the trip with a cold, passed it on to me. I also wanted to share the items that I purchased in my Sephora spring sale and do some other random chatty stuff. We're here in my bathroom. I am challenged to figure out what the right lighting and camera setup is. And so I'm trying this new setup back here with a tripod, and I'm looking into the mirror with the lights. As you can see in that mirror back here, back there, you can see the lights from a stand-up mirror that I'm looking in. So I'm gonna try that. I realize this is a weird angle and you're looking at my disorganized vanity back there, but that's what we're working with now. Maybe someday I'll realize the dream of creating like the studio space like YouTubers have, where the lights are already set up and all you have to do is press the camera and record. I'm not there yet. I'm constantly shifting around my ring light and my tripod and mirrors and everything, and it's just a big old pain in the butt. What else is a pain in the butt is my neighbor across the street, who it seems like as soon as I press record, he's out there with his blower, just going to town, revving that thing up, revving it, blowing, I don't know what, because there's no leaves on his lawn. There aren't even cuttings, like lawn cuttings. We've seen him out there blowing, using his leaf blower to dry his car, using his leaf blower to dry his barbecue setup that he cleaned off. And he revs it, and it's like jet engine noise. No one else on our block has a leaf blower that loud. I don't know where he got that industrial powered thing from, but man, is it a pain. So I need to close the window so that you and I can have some peace and quiet. Please hang on. So let's review first the products that I picked up in the Sephora sale. And as I apply them, I'll tell you about my trip to New York. So heads up, I know we're 2.5 minutes in and I'm giving you this heads up right now, but this is just going to be a chatty, rambly, directionless video. If that's cool with you, great, hang out with me. And if you prefer a more structured video with a script planned out, please join me another time because this is going to be a bit messy. So let's talk first of all about the VIB Sephora sale. I am a Rouge member because I spend stupid amounts of money at Sephora every year and reach that, that I think it's like you have to spend $1,000 in a year or something to get Rouge. And I reach that quickly because I buy a lot of stuff. So I hate the Sephora Rewards program. When this sale comes around, in my opinion, they should at least give your Rouge members a solid 30% off. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that 20% is just not a respectable discount. In fact, it's disrespectful to people like me that spend huge chunks of change at a place like that. Let me know what you think in the comments below about the sales and the point system at Sephora. So when you spend, you accumulate points, but then they have this weird thing with their point system where like you can, I think it's use 1,000 points for $10 off of your order. Occasionally they will do little sales here and there, like you can use a 15% off code, but just this weekend. And then twice a year in the spring and the fall, they have what they call their spring and fall sales, and it's a tiered system. So as Rouge, you get 25% off. The next tier down gets 15% off. And then the Beauty Insiders get like a measly slap in the face 10% off. It's just ridiculous. We all know that makeup is severely marked up, and yeah, we can do better, Sephora. Like, let's just get that out of the way. And in that sense, Ulta has a lot of loyalty from me, but I still purchase at Sephora. So I always debate, what do I want to get? And I end up getting items that I cannot find for the most part at Ulta, and that I don't want to wait for like the independent sites of the maker of that product to have their individual sales. I will wait for like a Pat McGrath sale. So I typically don't buy Pat McGrath in the Sephora sale sometimes. But Pat McGrath will do 30% off like site-wide sales on occasion, much better deals, especially at her price point than doing it on Sephora. Same thing for like Natasha Denona products, although there are a few in here. So let's get to it. And I'll try to use as many of these products today as I get ready and chat with you about random nonsense as possible. We have the Patrick Ta Major Dimension. I have the Major Dimension one, which is warm tone colors, and I love it. In fact, let me grab it. Here is the original Major Dimension, which it's become a favorite immediately of mine because the tones are just so perfect for me. And then Major Dimension 2 is rosier, as you can see side by side. So more pinky, more rosy, more maybe maroon-ish kinds of colors. And we'll play with this today. This will be my eye look for the day. It also has, you see the little window that popped open, 2 cream shadows on the side, just like this one does, you know, those 2 up there. So I like the way this looks. We'll see if it performs as well as the Major Dimension one. I picked up 2 foundations, both of which are probably horrid colors for me. The YSL All Hours foundation. I swatched this on my hand and I was scared because it stained my hand. In fact, maybe the camera can pick that up. You can still see some of the stain. I've never had a foundation do that to me, but I'm gonna be crazy and actually use this as my foundation today. This is in the color Warm Sand BD40. Then I picked up the famed, at this point, or maybe infamous, depending on which reviewer and what they have to say about it, Makeup Forever HD Skin Foundation. This color is way too warm for me right now, although in the summer when I do more tanning and self-tanning, it'll probably be better. This is in the color 2N26, and I won't use this, but let me just show you on the back of my hand what that color looks like. It is incredibly warm. Super duper warm tone. Again, on a tanned face, that'll look great. But right now it's gonna be a little bit on the clownish side for me. I picked up a few lip liners. One is from the Sephora collection. And this is the color Nothing But Nude. Let's check that out. Nice color. The Sephora products during the sale are 30% off. I contend, if I haven't said it already, and I have, but just to drive my point home, all of the products should be at least 30% off. And then from Makeup Forever, I picked up 2. They are, I'm gonna use them as lip liners, but you can use them as any kind of stick. It's called the Artist Color Pencil, and it's called a multi-use matte pencil, meaning you can do eyes or whatever you want. This is the color Wherever Walnut. That's really pretty, and that's gonna be a really easy color to use with a lot of different kinds of lipsticks. And I also picked up Anywhere Caffeine, which looks like that. I picked up on recommendation from Lisa J here on YouTube, and she's someone that I have watched for a long time. I'm gonna, how do you say this? Touche Eclat? Touche Eclat? Touche Eclat. 3D All Over Glow. This is, the shade is called Universal, and it's from YSL, and I believe it's a powder that you can use as a finishing powder. I'm going to try that today, and she called it, Lisa J. She called it one of her holy grail products, so we'll try that. I also picked up the Fenty Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Bronzer in the color Macchiato. Very pretty, neutral brown. Well, maybe it's a little bit warm, but we'll try that out. The Anastasia Magic Touch Concealer in the color 9. Huda Beauty lipstick in the color Buttercup. And I also got a replacement for Wedding Day. That's really pretty, peachy, pinky, very light, nudie color. So Wedding Day, can we talk about it? Because I'm so upset. This is my original Wedding Day, which is bludgeoned. Look at this thing. This is such a pretty pinky color. If I'm laughing all weird, it's because if I laugh too loud, I'll cough my lungs up because I'm still getting over the cold. Beautiful, Your Lips But Better, deep pinky color, but the lipstick bullet disattached from the base and broke my heart. So I ordered a new one, but guess what happened? What had happened was when I opened the new one, it too was disattached from the base. Huda, we need to talk about this. So I have to take that back. Okay, other products. This is on recommendation from Julie G here as a viewer. Hi, Julie. She recommended, I think it's LYS. I don't know if you say Lise or LYS. Higher Standard Satin Matte Cream Blush. This is in the color Kindness, which is like this light peachy color. I hate this packaging. This triangular pizza shaped thing is obnoxious to me. Can I get a square or can I get a circle? I don't know what to do with this in terms of storing this, but these come highly rated, so I definitely want to try that. And I've been wanting these for a long time, but they have been sold out. The Natasha Denona Work and Set. What is your official name? I like the gel for liner. This is the Bobbi Brown, similar. Oh my gosh, I just dipped my entire finger in there by mistake. Yuck. But it's a brown one, but it's darker and it has some shimmer, which is fine. This is beautiful, but I wanted to try one that was just a pure brown with no shimmer and a little bit lighter, a little bit more on the like milk chocolate end versus the dark chocolate end. And I also got one in her black shade. So, and I finally picked up a little travel of the Sweet Diamond Pink Pepper perfume from Kayali, because I really was eager to try this. I do like this smell a lot. I was prepared to not like it. I like it a lot, but it reminded me so much of something that's already in my collection. And I rack my brain and I rack my brain and I rack my brain. And it is Oud Satin Mood from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. Well, I have a sample of that. And then I have a dupe from Paris Corner called, I think it's Oud Satin or Satin Mood or something like that, that smells identical. So I don't need to buy a big bottle, but I will enjoy this little bottle. So that was my Sephora haul. I am going to go back one more time and purchase some backups of my Amore Pacific enzymatic exfoliator because I love it so much. I just finished the Good Molecules pineapple exfoliator, which was fine. It was grittier and more harsh, like texture-wise, than the Amore Pacific, which is a finer grain. So I think I prefer the Amore Pacific, although the Good Molecules one is just fine. So I want some backups of that because that is something I cannot find on sale. Shall we get into the makeup? Let's do this. So let's just chat about the trip to New York. For primer, I'm going to use the Laura Mercier Pure Canvas Primer. I have been trying to use this up for the better part of a year. It's a very decent primer, not one that I would repurchase, but a nice hydrating primer, and one that if you were interested in something like this, I would tell you to go ahead. But New York, let's talk quickly about preparing for vacation. And I would love to hear your thoughts about how you prepare, because here's what I find with vacations. And I have been on a vacation or 2 or 3 per year, right? So it could be a weekend trip, it could be a 5-day trip, it could be a whole week. I don't think I've done anything more than a whole week anywhere. So primer, and I'm gonna do eyeshadow primer with the tinted smudge proof eyeshadow base from NARS in the color medium. So the thing about vacation for me that just drives me insane, one, the planning for a vacation. Once upon a time, that used to really excite me a lot. But the older I get, the less patience and tolerance I have for doing the searching that it takes to really plan well for a vacation, including finding, if you're like me, you want to find, not always, but typically, more often than not, inexpensive ways to do things, or a less expensive way than paying maybe full retail price for things. So, and sometimes that works to your advantage, and sometimes you're just kind of wasting your time and your energy trying to save some money. So you got to be discerning about when you bother to focus on saving money or not. A newer product that I have been loving is the Ulta Beauty Under Eye Primer. I have used this putty primer from Becca for the longest time, which I still love and adore, but this has been good also. So anyway, the pre-planning, it can just take so much of your life force to plan for a vacation, finding the right hotel, making sure you line up your flights just right so you're leaving at a time that makes sense for you and your family and everyone's schedules, and returning at a time that makes sense so you're not exhausted. But do you want to take advantage of the full day on the back end, or do you want to leave first thing in the morning to make sure that your flights aren't delayed, and blah, blah, blah. The list of considerations when you're thinking about a vacation goes forever and ever and on and on. So, once you get all of that done and you've figured out where you're going, you've got your tickets, your hotel, your transportation figured out, your excursions, then it's time to pack. One of the most stressful aspects of travel, as well as the unpacking and putting things back and getting back into your normal routine. I mean, I have gotten to a point with packing where I always think I have my system down, Like I know exactly what I want to pack. I have a list of items to pack so I never forget things. I have little samples and travel sizes of things. And I think I've got it all down. And then I go to pack and it's just as stressful. And I'm like, why am I not just doing a staycation? I mean, I live in the state of Virginia. There are such beautiful things to do here in the state. But we always want that adventure. We want to travel. So anyway, this time it was New York. Before I go on, I am going to go in with this YSL foundation. Wish me luck. I'm a little scared of what it's going to look like and how it's going to stain my face. And I'm going to use a Beauty Blender sponge. And I think I might apply it straight to the sponge. So this time it was New York because I really wanted my son, this is a very light color, I wanted my son to see where I grew up and understand that he's living a very nice lifestyle right now in comparison to where I grew up. I just think it's important for people to know, where does your family come from? What was their origins like? Not for that to limit you or anything, but maybe in some ways to inspire you. What do we want for our kids? Every generation wants for their kids to have more, do more, be more. Well, I should say that's part of the American mentality. And I know that's a little bit crazy to some other folks. Like, why do you always want to be achieving and reaching and striving? When will you ever be satisfied? And I think the answer is never. I think it is just part of like human nature to strive and want to evolve and do more. Anyway, that got into a whole nother, topic of conversation there. But point being, I wanted to take him to New York to see what life was like for mom in her youth and also to tour the city because New York City is amazing. There's no other place in the world like New York. No other city. Have I been to every city in the world? No. But I'm pretty confident that New York has its own personality. I've been to a lot of cities. I've been to most major cities in the US and a number abroad. And it's just such a unique place. Okay, so we also wanted to see some plays. I wanted to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. Like I haven't seen the movies. I've seen portions of the movies. When you're applying foundation, there's always this weird thing that happens around your nostrils where you're like, did I get it up in there or not? You have these weird spots that emerge. Anyhow, Harry Potter, and I also wanted to see Hamilton. Now, have I always been a Hamilton fan? No. Have our kids always been? Yeah. Two of our 3 kids are really into Hamilton. My son being one, my stepdaughter being the other. And they know all the words to all the songs. All the words to all the songs. Let me just pause to say that this foundation went on really nicely. Looking in this mirror here, it's very natural, almost like a second skin. What do you think? I haven't done the concealer yet, so it's a little discolored there, but I like it. So anyway, they know all the words to all the songs, and I never really got into Hamilton. I was like, oh Lord, like they would pump the music through our house sound system, and I would just be like, these kids are crazy. I'm using the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder just to put a little bit of powder down on my face. And I'm sorry that I sound so sick. I can't help it. I have taken medicine. So I was really excited to see Hamilton. Now, if you have gone to some Broadway plays, you already know these tickets are not cheap. I mean, you can try to purchase tickets there on the spot at one of those like ticket booths in Times Square. But I wasn't trying to risk that because the whole purpose was I shouldn't say the whole, but one of the purposes was to enjoy the plays. And to me, where you sit in a theater is very important for your viewing pleasure and overall experience. And since I knew that would be one time that we would go to New York and probably not visit again, I really wanted to make sure we had nice seating. So after paying an arm and a leg for our tickets, I wanted to be sure we had a nice experience is what I'm getting at. And then I had to, decide on the sites that we wanted to see while we were there. Both of us are very scared of heights, but I really wanted to do one of the experiences where you get to look out from on high from one of the perches. There's the top of the rock that's at Rockefeller Center. That's pretty high up. You can do Empire State Building. You can do Freedom Tower, which is where the old World Trade Center is, the new tower. And then there's a 4th place called The Edge. I'll put a picture up here. The Edge terrified me because it's open air on top. Actually, Empire State Building is open air and so is Top of the Rock. So what am I talking about? But I really like that at Freedom Tower, it was enclosed because I'm terrified of heights and want to feel secure behind something. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, I'm going to use the Anastasia concealer on my under eyes. So the packing. I hate packing for the trip and I hate unpacking like tremendously. It just always stresses me out. Even though I have traveled and traveled and traveled, it just feels like I can't get my system down to a place that feels comfortable for me, where I can just do it quickly. One thing about traveling is that I'm doing this over powder, which is, what am I doing? I'm losing my mind here. Now, my husband, when he travels, he has like one little toiletry bag that he just, everything in there is what he always uses. And he doesn't even think twice about it. It's already sort of pre-prepared for him. I have tried that and it just doesn't work because I have so many products that I want to take with me. I want to be able, if I want to do a full face of makeup while I am on vacation. How are you about that? Do you do like minimal makeup? In some ways, I wish that I could just not worry about it. Like just do some lip gloss and some mascara, girl, and get on with your trip. But there's something about just having at least the resources there, your items available, and the option to do it that's very comforting for me. But then it creates like this packing drama. And of course, I try to start packing days before the trip, but inevitably the day before, I'm running around like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to figure out what else I need to put in my travel items. And I'm the mom. So what do? We gotta have what if we need medication? What if we need a Band-Aid? What if we need this or that, right? Like I'm always like thinking of like the worst case scenario and packing for it. My mom would say, just buy it while you're there. But I'm like, who wants to spend half of their vacation searching down like a drugstore if you need a Band-Aid? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's just stressful. So I'm liking this concealer on initial application. It's pretty full coverage. I like to tap it out 3 different times. I like to put it on, tap it out, let it go ahead and do a little bit of creasing because I do have a lot of lines and texture. And then I tap it out again, and then I tap it out a 3rd time. And that usually does the trick in terms of like setting it without any, long-term creasing. Let's go ahead and do the bronzer contoury kind of thing. Again, macchiato, right? Macchiato 03 and the Cheeks Out cream bronzer from Fenty. And this is an expert face brush from Real Techniques. Let's see how this works out. So let's chat about New York. I grew up in the Bronx in the 80s. It was a very, very different world then than it is now in some ways. And in other ways, it's like exactly the same. So I won't get into a whole lot of detail. If you're interested in the differences, do let me know. I'd be happy to do a different video on that. But the long and short of it is that it was a lot more sort of run down and beat up when I grew up there than it is now. It's still pretty, maybe not run down, and maybe not, well, it's old. Like everything not everything, I'm sorry. A lot of the buildings in the Bronx, the streets, everything are old. They've been up and around from the, earlier part of the 20th century onward. But there's a lot of new construction too. So anyway, we took the subway uptown. I was slightly scared of taking the subway, which I never have been, but there has been like a recent string of random muggings, robbings, stabbings, assaults, and whatever on the subway system that have been highly publicized in New York. Normally that sort of stuff wouldn't bother me, but because I'm traveling with my son, my young son, of course you want to be extra cautious and not get into any kind of unnecessary altercations while you're traveling. I mean, that's just common sense, right? And you know how it is with the news. Things make the news because they are news. They don't happen frequently. So even though the crime rate has gone up on the subways, relatively speaking, everyone's just doing fine. Like there's still millions taking the subways and getting around New York with no issues. So we went ahead and took the subway up to the Bronx. And I showed my son my old stomping grounds, the neighborhood where I grew up, which was a bit just weird and nostalgic for me. I think the thing that stands out the most to me, and I haven't been back to that neighborhood, I feel like it's been at least 15 years or so since I've traveled back up through there for any reason, maybe more, maybe even more than that. But what stands out to me the most is how small everything looked in comparison to how I remember it as a child. I lived in like a 3-story unit, and across the street was a traditional 6-story apartment building. And I just remember those structures in my memory. They're just so much bigger, like larger than life. That's kind of what your mind does with memories. This looks really crazy on camera. It looks really, well, it does here too. Let's do something there. Now, I know a lot of people believe in stopping your bronzer or your contour rather there. Sometimes I like to take it down to there. Who have I seen do that? Scott Barnes. He does it on J-Lo's face. No, I ain't J-Lo, but we can all strive to look like her, can't we? So the lighting here is a little weird because of where I'm standing and the skylights and whatever. So just bear with me while I work through this. So yeah, everything looked a lot smaller, more compact than I remember it growing up. But it was nice to show him that. I showed him the elementary school that I went to, which is very different than where he went to school. And then we walked out to my middle school. I didn't go to my zone's middle school. I went to another middle school that had a marching band because I really wanted to participate in the marching band. And it was about a 20-minute walk from my house. And again, as a kid, that walk seemed so much longer. It seemed like an hour-long walk, but it was really actually less than 20 minutes, maybe 17 minutes. But it was just interesting to see the neighborhoods along the way, the people that live there, how folks are just out and about all the time. Like we live in the suburbs now, you drive everywhere, and there just aren't people like hanging out on the roads, right? In New York, people are on the sidewalks everywhere. It feels like mostly all the time. And in some places more than others. Like if you're in Midtown Manhattan, Times Square, where we stayed, where our hotel was, we stayed at the Renaissance, the Marriott Renaissance, right there in Times Square. My God, I could look out of the window at 2 a.m. and there were people just hustling and bustling all over the place. So it's very different there than here and in most major cities than anywhere in any suburb, of course. But I think that was especially surprising to my son to just see so many people. And he kept asking, where's everybody going? What are they doing? And I'm like, well, they're just living their lives. They're just traveling from place to place. You know, they're just trying to get around. They're just living. You know, people walk places, people take public transportation more often than they drive. Surely people, you know, have cars and whatever in New York, but yeah. So I think all of that, I'm putting bronzer in my crease also. I think all of that was pretty surprising to him. And it was just interesting to see the whole thing through his eyes. You know, a place where I grew up that was very sort of, I don't know, natural to me was so foreign and weird to him. So it was like I was almost rediscovering my own upbringing through his eyes again, which was quite fascinating for me. So that was our trip to the Bronx. I showed him Yankee Stadium. We rode the subways. I showed him several different neighborhoods. We went to the corner store. We got some plantain chips and stuff, you know, things I used to do when I was a kid. All right, so let's get into this eye look. So again, here's the palette. I always say this and then end up lying, but I think I want to stay in the lighter tones over here and maybe use one of these for like the crease, but mostly up in here. So let's start really light. I have a big fluffy brush from Wayne Goss, the 03, and let's go into this super light pinky color here. And should I tap off? Let's not tap off. Let's be bold and not tap off and see what we get in terms of payoff. So then Saturday night, we saw the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child show. Very long show. I think it was 3.5 hours. The seating wasn't the most comfortable, but we had some really nice seats in the orchestra section up close to the stage. And I have to say, it was a really nice production. I found it very, I don't know, fascinating the way that some of the special effects were done. I mean, I've read too many reviews. Sometimes when you read too many reviews, you're looking for more than what's there. So a lot of people talked about the show having a lot of magic and special effects. And yes, there were some of those, but not to the extent that I was expecting after I read the reviews. So maybe that's my bad. I shouldn't have read that many reviews on it. But nonetheless, there were some nice special effects in the show. The cast was brilliant, very well done. And we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it overall. My son loved it. He went crazy over it. And kind of that's all that matters, right? Like that was the whole point. I certainly don't love Harry Potter enough to have wanted to go on my own. I went for him and he loved it. So, okay. And then I'm going to go in with this one to be like most of the background shade. Whoa! Whoa, hashtag fail. Let's buff that out a bit. I went a little too crazy there, too quick. Okay, that'll work. On Sunday, we had a bit of a disaster because it was a rainy day. So I tried to go up to the Museum of Natural History. One, it was rainy and it was cold. And two, when we got up there, I didn't realize, and shame on me for not at least checking, especially with COVID and everything, right? Not checking, but they had this timed entry system that they've never had before. And there was this long line outside, even for the people that had reserved their timed tickets. So I was ticked at the ticket situation. It was cold. We ended up like leaving and going to eat some sushi, and then we walked across Central Park to check out the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I looked on the website and it didn't say anything about timed entries, but people were still in line to get in, and I'm talking about lines that wrapped around the block. So I was like, you know what? No, we just picked up some ice cream, even though it was cold, and we walked along Central Park East. So south towards Fifth Avenue. And here's what I love about New York so darn much. But first, but first, I think I will deepen up with maybe one or two of these shades. Let's try this one first. It's a really pretty color, at least in the pan. I just tapped off a little bit. One of the things I love most about New York is that you really don't have to have a planned adventure. You literally can just walk around. If you know where you're going, or have a map, or heck, you can even Google it on your phone. So this is coming across more like purpley on my eye than in the pan. In the pan, it almost looks like a wine-ish kind of color, a terracotta wine color, but it's coming across kind of dark on my eye. The lighting in here is atrocious for filming. My apologies. Yeah, you can walk around New York and get into all kinds of things just on a walk. So I really wanted him to see Fifth Avenue, and I wanted him to see the ritzy shops. Now, I don't shop at the ritzy shops because I'm not trying to drop several $1,000s on an item of clothing. It's just not happening. And I'm not like a luxury handbag and jewelry shopper. That's just not me. But I have appreciation for all of that, of course. And just wanted him to see where the famous shops are. So we did that, and he saw all of the big time shops, all of the like the Harry Winstons, the Tiffany shop, the Armani store, the Dior, the Gucci, blah 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 blah. All that stuff he saw. And we just walked around. But here's what I love the most. We came across this cathedral. I think it's called St. Thomas's Cathedral, that in all the time that I had lived in New York just never caught my attention. Did I know it was there? Had I seen it? Probably. Had never thought to think about it. Never thought to think about it. And then I saw a guard standing in the door, and I kind of motioned to him like, can we go inside? And he said, yeah, come up. We went inside. One of the most beautiful cathedrals I've ever seen. And what the real treat was is that there was a choir of young boys, and it was just the most ethereal, beautiful, touching music, touching sound, touching chorus of song. I mean, just beautiful, like we were listening to some medieval music or something. What the hell am I talking about? We really enjoyed it. So my son, who I probably could never drag to a church if I wanted to, was all of a sudden like enthralled, and he wanted to sit in the pews and listen. And I was like, what a blessing, because I've always wanted to take him to church. We sat in the pews and listened to this boys' choir, and it was just so relaxing, otherworldly. I don't know, there was just something so like angelic about the whole experience, and watching like the vaulted ceiling, not watching it because it wasn't like it did anything. We were looking at the vaulted ceiling and the stained glass and all of that. And it was just so relaxing and so moving for us. And I thought, what a beautiful little moment. He didn't want to leave. And in fact, he wanted to pray. My son wanted to pray. And I was like, this is beautiful. So, I showed him how to use the little cushion to kneel. And he said his little prayer. And I was just really, as a mom, I was just really touched by that. I thought that was a really special experience. We kept walking, and then we went down to St. Patrick's Cathedral and did the same there. And we listened to a Spanish mass, a mass that was being held a Catholic mass in Spanish. It was beautiful. It was all a really just a lovely experience. I don't know what I think of this eyeshadow look, but we're gonna keep going. I need to do something on the lower section here. Oh, wait a minute. Do I wanna, yeah, let's do that and then I'll go back in and do like the shimmer thing. All right, let's do the under eye part. So no denying that the highlight of our trip, we did a lot of stuff, by the way. We did a lot of sightseeing, which I'll talk about, but the highlight of our trip was seeing Hamilton, the musical. Oh my God. Now I can see why the kids are so into it. I knew some of the songs from just listening to them sing it around the house. And I have to tell you, that musical moved me so deeply. I laughed, I cried, I smiled, I cheered. I wished, I hoped, along with the cast. Cast was excellent. It's not the original cast, but I've seen the original on Disney. If you have the Disney Channel, you can watch the original Hamilton cast, and they are excellent. But I'm gonna tell you what, this cast that I saw was phenomenal. I prefer the cast that I saw, to be honest with you. Just so well done. As a former history teacher, I appreciate how the play was done, and I wish that things like that were around when I was teaching. Now I realize there's a lot of sort of romantic interpretation on the part of Lin-Manuel Miranda when he was writing the script for the show and creating details about Hamilton's life to fit the show. I get that. Nonetheless, it was so well done and so creative and so illustrative and so well illustrated a lot of the important points. I'm going in with this shimmer here on the eyelid. Ooh, hello. Let's see how that does. Okay, this is giving your Pat McGrath VR formulas, your astral formulas rather, a run for their money. Wow. I love it. Oh, and it has a shift in here. I didn't realize that. It's like pink to gold shift. So anyway, Hamilton was the highlight, hands down, of our vacation. Just loved it. I thought it was so well done. Easy standing ovation at the end. I mean, I do standing ovations for most plays anyway, but this was like, they deserve every second of every clap in that theater. Phenomenal. Have you seen Hamilton? Are you interested in it? I just remember people raving about it and being like, really? Hamilton? Everybody's excited about Hamilton? Oh my God. I totally get it. So we also did Freedom Tower. Let me try to do this like goldy one in the middle just to give it a little bit of pop. So Freedom Tower, let's talk about that. The elevator ascends quickly. It's a 40-something second ride that goes super quick. The elevator, the back of the elevator and the sides has like a little movie that they play to show you the development of New York from nothing, from like woods all the way up to the skyscraper skyline that you see today. And it's just so well done. And the elevator ride is so smooth, which I, as someone deathly afraid of heights, incredibly appreciate. So before we go on, a quick thumbs up on this Patrick Ta palette. I already have 10,000 fingerprints all over it, but this is a really pretty palette. Enjoyed all the colors that I used today. And if they're anything like the Major Dimension one, they will last throughout the day. I maybe want to deepen up the corners just a little bit before I go on. So once you're up there, it's 102 stories up in the lower part of Manhattan, if you're not familiar with the layout. And you can see out to, it seems like out to the universe. I definitely have a great view of the Statue of Liberty up there, like to the south, whatever corner that is, southeast corner. You can see across to New Jersey, you can see out to Brooklyn, you can see down the Hudson and out to, is it out to the ocean at that moment? Whatever that body of water is there. And then when you go to the other side, it's like a 360-degree panoramic observation deck. When you go to the other side, you can see all the way up to the Bronx, it seems, which is really far up there. But definitely the New York skyline right in front of you. And it's really phenomenal. There's nothing like the New York City skyline. I mean, it does something to me to see it, and especially at night. I wonder if you can go up there at night. Haven't looked that up. If you ever have the chance to fly into New York at night, especially into, I think it's LaGuardia versus Kennedy. LaGuardia Airport in Queens, the way that the planes come in, the flight patterns, if you can fly in or out, If you fly in, you want to be sitting on the left-hand side of the plane. If you're coming from the south, I guess it doesn't matter. If you're flying in, you want to be sitting on the left-hand side of the plane. If you're flying out, you want to be sitting on the right-hand side. The skyline view at night is just breathtakingly beautiful. There's nothing like it. So back to the palette, thumbs up on this. You're definitely going to get like a pinky look out of that. So maybe this is what I wanted the Huda New Nudes to be. Yeah. Okay. So I gave that one away. And yeah, this is going to be using that black Natasha Denona eye gel for eyeliner. So anyway, the observation deck is an experience. I am chicken poo and will not go up to the window. I just have this thing, like I go up to the window and I get like queasy. So I have to step back at least 10 feet from the window and look from there. I can't be like right up on the window or I just feel like I'm going to pass out. But it is such an experience to see that skyline. It's just something else, you know? This is something. This gel is something. Speaking of something, I've never, not even the Bobbi Brown. I've never had a gel this smooth. This goes on super easy, super, super easy. I like it. Picasso. We didn't stay up there long because I am chicken, like I just said. My son enjoyed it and we left. And then we stumbled upon Trinity Church in Lower Manhattan, which is where Alexander Hamilton is buried and his family's buried. And if you've watched the play, you know who Eliza is. His wife and his son Philip are also buried in that same church graveyard. We didn't get a chance to go into the church. That is the church in Lower Manhattan. If you're old enough to have seen all the footage from 9/11 and the collapse of the towers, it is the church that stayed intact. It's right near the World Trade Center and was relatively untouched in comparison to the buildings around that sustained damage during that attack. So that was super interesting. All of that to see, we walked down to the Wall Street charging bull, the famous bull, just to show him that. And listen, if you don't see that while you're in New York, you're not missing anything. It's not anything spectacular, but it's just one of those things to say, I saw it, We caught a cab up to Chelsea Market, had lunch there, and then walked the High Line. The High Line is so funny. If you live in an area that has natural parks and just a lot of natural spaces, the High Line's just not that amusing. But for New York, it is, right? It's just one of those things. It is a lifted railroad track that is no longer in use, that has been converted to like a walkway. So we walked along there. We saw Oculus, which is this really cool train station down by the World Trade Center. We saw Macy's, iconic Macy's on 34th Street, Rockefeller Center. We did all that stuff, all of it. I'm gonna tell you what though, there was one thing about New York. Well, listen, if you haven't been to New York, there's several things that can be off-putting. So let me just tell you about that. And then I'll tell you about something that as a New Yorker, I was irritated by, a former New Yorker. Well, so first of all, New York is incredibly crowded. There's a lot of noise and there are a lot of smells in the city. People, especially if you're in Manhattan in the Midtown area, and by Midtown, I mean anywhere around like the Rockefeller Center, Times Square section, anywhere from like north of like 34th Street or so. That's not technically Midtown, but then up to like Central Park counts in my mind as Midtown Manhattan. There's a lot of little neighborhoods in Manhattan. You have like the Flatiron District and the Garment District and the Meatpacking District and Chelsea, Tribeca, all this stuff. But anyway, it's a very crowded city. It is densely populated, which means that there are people everywhere all the time. So if you're in an area that is more bucolic, you've got rolling hillsides and countryside, going to New York and seeing all those people hustling and bustling everywhere can be a little off-putting, maybe even a little surprising. So just be ready for that if you decide to visit. It's just part and parcel of visiting New York. There are people there from all over the world speaking all different languages. So if that's something that you don't think you can handle, you don't need to go to New York. It's just the way that it is. There are people there from everywhere, all walks of life, all religions, all different everything, different ethnicities, different races, different languages. So that's one thing to know. Densely populated, people are rushing everywhere, it seems like. You go on to like a corner, you're waiting for the light to change. There's 20 people waiting with you, especially if you're in the more crowded areas, like say on 34th Street. There are massive crowds waiting for the light to change so that they can all rush across the street together. There's a lot of like honking, cars are rude to each other. You know, it's just the way that it is in New York and probably in any major city. And then the smells. So when I was still younger and I went to New York with a friend of mine from Dallas, she was just shocked at how much the city stinks. If you're not used to that, like if you live in New York, it's just the way that it is. The subways smell horrid. The streets have this odor to them. And then there are smells coming out from everywhere, like all kinds of shops that sell different things, food shops. You have the corner vendors with like the hot dogs and the falafels and the this and that. So there's like smells all over the place. And everything's super expensive. I mean, like, especially if you're in the touristy areas, you know, a bottle of water will cost you $4 and $5. Lord. But what I hated the most, and I was surprised by because I wasn't ready for it, is apparently marijuana is legal in New York. Now, whether or not you choose to smoke, I don't want to get into all that. To each their own. I don't. And I don't want to smell it. So having it legalized is one thing. Having a weed world truck, literally, on many corners that's selling it and where you can smell it all the time. It felt like, especially in Midtown, it seemed like I could smell pot everywhere. I'm with my son. You know, he's like, Mom, what's that smell? And I just had to be like, it's pot. It's legal here. Everywhere, everywhere. Even when I went up into Central Park, it's all over Central Park. On Central Park East, Central Park West, we were walking around those neighborhoods. Pot. Wow. It was too much. I was like, people, yeah, it's legal. Calm down. Go smoke in your house. Go smoke in your house. Same thing with like cigarette smoke. Cigarette smoke is everywhere in New York. You know, it's just like an air quality issue after a while. Anyway, I wasn't ready for that, and it was very, very off-putting for me and very kind of ruined the walking around New York City part. Like, there's enough smells. You don't need to add a cannabis odor on top of that. And I'm talking about in your face, pungent. Ugh, I didn't like it. So I lied. I went ahead and put on my eyelashes. They feel ridiculous. They do, but I know they look good-ish on camera. Like while you're recording, like look back here, look how big they look. But they look really ridiculous up close. They're the Huda Beauty Camille number 16 shorties. And what I do like about them is that they start here. They don't start at the inside. So it makes it a lot easier to apply. But boy, are they like super loud. I'm going in with Lancome's Monsieur Big Mascara. Oh Lord, what have I done to my look? So the other thing about New York that I want to warn people about, if you've never been and you're considering, is there is big time hustle in New York. What do I mean by that? There's always someone somewhere, especially in the city, trying to sell you some tickets, trying to sell you something. In Times Square, there's artists, up and coming artists. They're not up and coming, they think they are, trying to sell you their CDs of music. There's people trying to sell you their artwork. There's someone trying to sell you a ticket to a comedy show. It's just constant like hustle, hustle, hustle. And if you're not careful and you don't know what you're doing, you're standing there wasting your time and energy listening to these little sales pitches and feeling pressure to purchase stuff. Just don't. Just literally, I'm sorry, just ignore people and walk past them. You'll thank me later. Don't feel obligated to say I'm sorry. Don't feel obligated to listen. Just nod no and keep walking. You know, that's it. That's it. You're welcome. You'll save yourself a lot of aggravation and drama. Now, I'm noticing that this looks absolutely crazy. So let me grab the beauty blender and see if I can like, what the hell have I done? See if I can clean up this little line here. I can't. So that's just going to be what it's going to be. And my hair is going to help with that. What have I done? Let's go ahead and do using that, whatever it's called, LYS or lease in kindness. All in all, we had a good trip. Lots and lots of money was spent. I mean, it's just like, you're just hemorrhaging money in New York. Hemorrhaging. So you need to just sort of know that going in and be ready for that. I enjoyed it. I would absolutely fly back to New York for Hamilton. It was just that good of a play and that moving for me. It might not be for you, but I enjoyed it tremendously. The cast was just so dang good. So I like this a lot. Thank you, Julie G, for the recommendation. Julie G, if you don't follow her on Instagram, I'm going to link her down below. Check her out. She does the coolest pictures of her nails. And she wears like a different color. It feels like every day. Julie, do you do your nails that often? But anyway, she's got gorgeous colors and I'm always drooling over them. Let's do some highlighter and lips. And then I want to use that all over glow powder and do something with my hair. Okay? I'm using the ColourPop Flexitarian highlighter to just do a little touch up here to accentuate the top part of my eyeshadow look without getting too crazy. It looks much crazier in person than it does on camera, so there we go. A little bit. And then I do want to do something on the inner corner of the eyes also to brighten that up a bit and not have it get muddy with the eyeliner. That was a bit tricky. Y'all, I am not a makeup artist. I just play with makeup, okay? Sometimes it works and sometimes it is a circus. And I want to do just a touch on the cheeks. So I'm going to like literally just tap in and one of those numbers. I may go back over this with some more blush. I like to do that. It makes it look more luminous, especially if you're working with powder brushes. You know, sometimes your looks come out and sometimes they come out, you just roll with it. You just gotta roll with it. I'm gonna use that Anywhere Caffeine color from Makeup Forever on the lips. So that's the color, which I really like. I'm going in with that Buttercup from Huda on my lips, which is this really pale nudie color. It's got a little bit of sheen to it, and I was hoping it would be more matte. So, well, it does say cream lipstick, so that's my own fault. However, the way that you can make a cream lipstick matte is with some face powder. Should we try it? Okay, so I've tapped out a little powder. I'm gonna use another clean finger here. I think that'll be okay for now. It's time for the percolator. Just kidding, setting spray. Morphe Continuous Setting Mist. Ooh. I always like to go back in with a sponge after the setting spray. It still looks crazy over here. It looks better in person, but somehow on the screen it looks like a hot mess. All right. So we've done the curling iron deal. You see it there in the sink. Let me fluff this out just a little bit. I just wanted something more than just like straight ends. Maybe not like super duper big pageant curls, but a little bit more body. So something like that. I'll play with that a little bit later on. But let's get this all over glow. Holy Grail recommendation from Lisa J on my face. Spray and everything has settled down. So you can't see it on camera, but I can see it in the mirror that this has had like a really nice mattifying effect on the entire look. So here is what we have going on with natural lighting. And you see how different this looks in this light. So I'm facing my back windows, which gives me a nice, simple, natural light. There are no filters. It's a whole different look here than it is in the bathroom under lights from overhead sink, from the lights from the mirror, from the skylights, 3 different sources of lights hitting all different kinds of angles. Here is a much more natural version of what it actually looks like in real life. So I do like the look a lot. The eyeshadow is a nice, soft, pinky, muted look. The skin texture with that YSL foundation, I think, is phenomenal for me and my skin texture. I really even like the eyelashes here in this light a whole lot more and love this Buttercup lipstick here. You see that the contour looks a lot more natural here. So what do we think? Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed my little story times about New York and hearing about the new products that I picked up in the Sephora sale. Take care.